President.
Members, we are under Governor's appointments. This is file item 14. Senator, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. These are the nominations of Paul Schiaffino and Mark A. Thurman as members of the Contractor State License Board. They were heard in the Rules Committee on the 27th of April, approved on a 5-0 vote, no opposition. I would ask for an aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist? Aye. Anderson? Aye. Berryhill? Blakesley? Aye. Berryhill, aye. Calderon? Aye. Canella? Aye. Corbett? Aye. Correa? Aye. De Leon? Aye. DeSaulnier? Aye. Dutton? Aye. Emerson? Aye. Evans? Aye. Fuller? Aye. Gaines? Aye. Hancock? Aye. Harmon? Aye. Hernandez? Aye. Huff? Aye. Kehoe? Aye. LaMalfa? Aye. Leno? Aye. Ted Lieu? Aye. Carolou? Aye. Lowenthal? Aye. Negrete McLeod? Aye. Padilla? Aye. Pavley? Aye. Price? Aye. Rubio? Aye. Runner? Aye. Semidian? Aye. Steinberg? Aye. Strickland? Aye. Vargas? Aye. Walters? Aye. Wolk? Aye. Wright? Wyland? Wright? Aye. Wyland? Yee? Yee, aye.
Call the absent members, please.
Wyland?
Ayes 39, noes 0. The appointments are approved. Thank you, Senator Steinberg. Members, that takes us to Senate third reading. File item 36 is the first item. One moment, please. Senator Correa, are you prepared to take up this item? Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 151 by Senator Correa, an act relating to state employees, making an appropriation therefore, and declaring their thereof to take effect immediately.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, Senate Bill 151 represents 6 MOUs, or Memorandums of Understanding. First, let me thank all the individuals that have been working on these MOUs. Some of these have been in the making for about 5 years. And I want to thank also the press that really delved into some of these issues and really shed some light and asked the hard questions. And of course, I want to also thank Daryl for actually putting the bill over for a few days so that some of the folks on this floor could again look at these issues and again re-ask the hard questions to make sure that what we were doing here today is exactly as represented by this bill. And I have to remind all of you that this is one that's been in print for a number of days. It's been analyzed and been reanalyzed. Again, hard questions asked. It's not being done at 2 in the morning or midnight, but it's being done week and a half after the analysis have been over. 6 MOUs here. Number 2, the attorneys, bargaining unit 2. Number 6, correctional officers. Number 7, protective services and public safety. Number 9, professional engineers. Number 10, scientists. Number 13, stationary engineers. There's a lot in here, a lot of information, but let me go over what I consider to be some of the key elements or points of SB 151. First of all, there is substantial pension savings in the form of permanently increasing contributions by employees by an additional 2 to 5% of their base pay to their pensions. That'll increase their retirement contribution to 8 to 11% monthly. And again, these are permanent increases in contribution, resulting in over $350 million in savings. Again, this will result in $350 million in savings right away, as soon as this MOU takes effect. Not in the future, but right away. Also, of course, I'm not scoring it here, but there will be additional savings because of those permanent contributions moving forward. Will save the state of California additional monies, since those are, again, permanent contribution changes to CalPERS. Secondly, elimination of peace officers and firefighters defined contribution plan. The state will stop contributing 2% of bargaining unit number 6 employees' base pay toward a defined contribution plan. That savings there is $137 million. Personal leave program. For 12 months, employees' pay will be reduced by 4.60%, and in return they'll get 8 hours of non-cashable leave. Savings, $202 million. Again, savings, $232 million. There is a salary increase that will take effect at the end of the MOU, or in 2013. And only the employees that at the top step of their salary range will get that pay increase that will offset their increase in pension contributions. This increase will take them back to the salary levels they had 5 years ago. The cost of the salary increase, $152 million. So you have taxpayers' savings from the pension reforms, $350 million, less cost of the salaries, $150, net to taxpayers, $200 million. On the management side, California Department of Corrections and Rehab, CDCR, will maintain and actually enhance its flexibility to manage the correction systems while keeping meet and confer over the effects of such changes. Now, this is important because as they're negotiating these transactions, if they both sides negotiate in good faith after 30 days, if there is no deal reached, then last and final offer will be implemented. Additionally, leave time will no longer be considered for overtime purposes. These MOUs confirm to the statutory ban on employees' use of leave for overtime pay. Leave days. These MOUs provide 2 non-cashable leave days per year. You either use them that year or you lose them. Other important issues that I need to point out to you, one that's gotten a lot of attention is the cap on accrued leave. The cap on accrued leave. This is a complicated one, confusing, but it's confusing because of the conflicts of policies. First of all, according to DPA, there exists no cap in the state of California. So although this MOU does away with this cap, according to DPA, there exists no cap for anybody in the state of California. But according to state policy, there are guidelines for such a cap. But those guidelines, that policy, is rarely if ever, been enforced. So let me be clear. According to DPA, there is no cap. According to the state, there's supposed to be a guideline, but these guidelines are never really followed. This MOU does away with that cap, clears up the air. Now, why would you not have a cap? Well, in the prison system, as you know, prisons run 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You got somebody that goes on vacation, somebody's got to take that place of that guard. And when you knew that, you create a vacancy. Management has a choice. Put them on vacation or go out and hire another person, or they work right through it. So again, you take vacation, it creates an ability or the opportunity and the need to hire another individual, creating other fiscal issues. Another issue, accrued leave being used to spike pensions. There's been a lot of talk about some of these individuals saving up all their vacation. Right before they retire, they cash it and they use that to spike their pension. Ladies and gentlemen, that's against the law, and this MOU does not change that aspect of the law. You cannot use this pay, accrued pay, to spike your pensions. What you can do with it is take it, cash it, take the money, pay taxes on it, and walk away. Another issue, the furlough program. This MOU takes effect and will end furloughs in March. The state will essentially be losing 9 days of furlough. Yet, Senate Bill 151 calls for 12 days of personal leave over the next 12 months. So you lose 9 days of furlough and you get 12 days of personal leave, means that the state is ahead by 3 days. These are what I consider the key points, Senate Bill 151.
Thank you, Senator Correa. Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion, Senator Dutton.
Well, Mr. Chairman and members, or Mr. President and members, I guess first of all, overall, it's still $208 million short on what was indicated was going to be the goal and objective of negotiating these MOUs. You know, some of the employees covered by these contracts do some of the toughest jobs in California and in our local communities, our roadways, and in our correctional facilities. While there are some positives in these contracts, there are still big issues that we must address. Pension reform is being demanded by the public. The governor has provided a 12-point pension reform outline, and the Senate Republicans have argued for a more significant reform package. None of those new prevention reforms have been achieved in these contracts. In March of this year, the Comptroller released a report showing a $60 billion unfunded liability for retiree health care. These contracts do not begin to address that problem, and in fact make the problem worse. The LEO shows an ongoing net cost for these contracts in the hundreds of millions of dollars for salary increases, increased health benefit costs, and additional leave days. All of this is in the backdrop of the governor's proposal for a massive $50 billion tax increase over the next 5 years. And also his same proposal indicates an increase of $26 billion in our state operating budgets over the first 3 years. I'm told that we're short nearly 4,000 correctional officers. That obviously drives up overtime cost. We need to immediately begin hiring process and should work to add 1,000 officers in the next 12 months. There's no excuse for what's happening right now. A plan should be developed to fill the rest of the vacancies. This will help reduce the cost, and maybe we can actually achieve some net savings that would be meaningful and more according to what the governor's represented he was going to achieve. And by reducing these costs, we can also improve public safety, improving our operations in our correctional system. There's more work to be done. This bill's not ready. Should be addressed as part of an entire budget package that includes these reforms. This bill does provide some short-term gain, but with a lot of long-term pain. I would suggest a no vote.
Further debate or discussion? Senator Steinberg? Senator Vargas, forgive me.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate the opportunity to speak in favor of ratification. I believe in collective bargaining. I strongly believe in collective bargaining. I think the governor did a very good job here. He was tough. He negotiated a very good package, and we have it before us. Most of the criticism that I've heard has been around the MOU with the Correctional Police Officers Association. And I think it is important that we debate this issue. I just wish that we could debate it in Blythe, at the Chuckawalla prison. I wish we could debate it there with the two people that I met, with 172 inmates watching them the whole time when there were murderers, rapists, people that had committed all sorts of heinous crimes. I wish we could debate it there, the toughest beat in California, and tell them, oh no, you're not worth it. Well, let me tell you, I wish we could, but we can't. But we can ratify this and say, we respect the job you do. We can't give you much, because this doesn't give them much. It doesn't tie them to what the LA sheriffs get, what the San Diego police officers get. That's not true. They still don't get paid very much, and yet they have the toughest job to do. So I proudly stand here and say, this is a tough MOU. but it's one that deserves our vote.
Further debate or discussion? Senator Leno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for the author, please.
Senator Correa, are you prepared to take a question?
Sure.
You are.
So I'm just looking at an editorial that ran this past weekend in criticism of the CCPOA MOU, and it says, I'm reading part of it here, that prison guard salary increases would continue to be linked to the average compensation of sheriff's deputies in Los Angeles County and police in Los Angeles, San Diego, Oakland, and San Francisco, thereby ceding city and county government's control over state prison pay. But it's my understanding that Section 15.01A in this MOU actually deletes that linkage, thereby saving the state $1 billion that it had when that linkage was put into Governor Davis's MOU with the CCPOA. Is it accurate that that linkage is still in there or not?
That linkage does not exist. So your answer to your question is you are correct. That is not the case. The linkage is not there.
I just conclude real quickly. I believe there has been more than just a bit of misinformation put out to underscore what Senator Vargas has just said. These are negotiations. No side gets everything that any one side wants. That is, by definition, negotiation. And with regard to the shortfall between what the governor put in the January budget and what was manifested in savings, that is the difference in the negotiation. And given that the governor had to put some figure into the January budget, follow this. If he had set it $100 or $200 million lower, we would have not gotten that amount. It would have been less than that. And you can check the history books. This was no different with Governor Wilson, Governor Deukmejian. These differences represent the very nature of collective bargaining. I think we need to dispel some of the misinformation that has been put out, for example, the one I've just shown you, and recognize that the governor has negotiated a much better MOU than what existed with the Davis administration, which I think preceded just about all of us here. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Further debate or discussion? Senator LaMalfa.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, for me, this feels more like a take it or leave it deal. I don't feel like I've been negotiated with for these the package of 6. Now, there's things that I feel we could probably be pretty close to. A little spit and polish, we might be there on a couple of these. But we don't achieve the savings the governor lined out in his original plan of $300 million. We're $200 million short of that. So we have to go find that in the upcoming budget negotiations. Where's that going to come from? Schools, highways, or more taxes? The pressure here is to raise taxes. So I don't feel like this has been a negotiation at all. Had we been asked to come to the table early on, we could have put things in there that probably would have kept a lot of this much smoother in the press, much smoother in the eyes of the voters of California that are watching what we do here. So we're asked to take a deal that's going to put us in, I think, greater financial peril with regards to getting this budget done. We really should be getting the budget done first. We would know where we're at, and we can come back and do this right. So I don't like the idea of a take it or leave it. I don't like that these are all lumped in as one deal. If we separated these into separate pieces, I think we could get there. As far as the correctional officers, I've been up to Pelican Bay. I've seen what these fellas go through, and ladies. It's tough. The whole situation with the furloughs, it's just poor policy to be putting public safety and those officers in a furlough situation. So we need to get this right. We need time to get this right. And we're being more or less hurried through in an all-or-one deal without true Republican input. So I'm really bothered by this process.
Further debate or discussion? Senator Steinberg.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, let me begin with a question of the author. Assuming that these memorandums of understanding are approved today by the Senate and sometime this week by the Assembly, does the state and the state budget begin saving money immediately?
Of course, and as I mentioned in my statement, we're looking at $350 million in savings immediately during the term of this MOU. That's $350 million in savings right away from the additional contributions to the pensions. That does not even begin to address or cover the additional savings from the pension reforms embedded in these contracts, which, of course, new employees will have to work for longer terms, for lower benefits, and pay higher amounts into their pension. So there are some savings here, but what's significant here, $350 million of savings immediately.
Thank you, Senator Correa. Now on my own time, if I may. Mr. President, sometimes the debates in here are really Alice in Wonderland to me, because I don't know what side is up or what side of the looking glass I'm looking through, because it was last October, I believe, when this Senate considered the repeal of Senate Bill 400, and 40% of the membership of the minority party refused to vote for pension reform. And yet you talk about it all the time. This is now your second opportunity to vote for pension reform in the last 7 months. Where is the commitment to actually reform something? You want to detail what's in this contract? Senator Correa just said it. You have to retire at an older age in order to get a higher formula. And in addition, the employees have to actually contribute money immediately to get the lower pension that they're bargaining for. Senator LaMalfa, my friend, says we are $200 million short. Members were $12.5 billion short. Perspective. This is collective bargaining, as Senator Vargas said. It is give and take. Collective bargaining, as we know, is under attack throughout our country. I ask the members of the minority party, the vast majority of you voted for the SEIU contracts last fall. Why not the contracts for the men and women who put their lives on the line every day? You know, for 6 years, there are many things we can talk about in the contract, and Senator Correa, I think, has done a fine job detailing some of the myths and facts around pay not being tied to the Highway Patrol any longer, about the fact that there are specific provisions in the contract that deal with the so-called code of silence and training to inhibit that. But there's one provision I want to talk about, because all of us who have been in the legislature for the past number of years, during the years of the Schwarzenegger administration, know that the single biggest area of disagreement between the executive branch and CCPOA was the issue of management rights. It's what held Governor Schwarzenegger up from negotiating a contract with that collective bargaining unit. And what was the issue? Over time, there had developed this procedure where local wardens could negotiate agreements with the local union representatives. And right or wrong, what then occurred were literally hundreds of these local agreements. Management complained, and Governor Schwarzenegger gave voice to this complaint, that the power to run the prisons transferred from the management to the union. Now, there are two sides to every argument here, but that was the main point of contention. Governor Schwarzenegger, for a whole host of reasons, the relationship broke down, obviously, was never able to negotiate a change to that problem. Governor Brown is in office for what now? 5 months? 5 months? And he has negotiated a change to that entire agreement clause. Let me be more specific. Now, under the contract that we will hopefully ratify here today, management can unwind these local agreements. Matt Cate, the director, can say to the CCPOA, we don't like this at the local level. We want to reopen this. The CCPOA then has to negotiate, and if they can't come to an agreement, and I know Matt Cate well, he will work out more problems than not. Management can then unilaterally change the agreement. That is the single biggest concession that the Schwarzenegger administration sought for 6 years, and it's in this contract. So we can talk about $200 million, but the fact of the matter is we will save less money by rejecting these contracts than by approving them. And the fundamental management issues, which are crucial to the operation of our prisons, have been resolved. Pension reform, cost savings, management changes. Please approve these MOUs so that we can get on with the business of resolving the state budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Further debate or discussion? Senator Huff.
Thank you, Mr. President. The question, or actually the statement was made that the SEIU contracts garnered a lot of support here, and that's true. That was a game-changing agreement. And as I recall, Governor Schwarzenegger said the best deal would be had then, it would never get better. Now we got a new governor, and one can make an argument that the previous governor and the prison guards didn't get along well. That's all true. But last year, when you had a game-changing memorandum of understanding, the negotiated agreements that turned back the clock to 1999, that was a good deal in the context. This would have been a good deal in the context of last year. Unfortunately, we're not in last year. We're in 2011. We're facing a $26 billion deficit. You're asking the voters to raise taxes at the same time you're making cuts. This agreement scores a little bit of savings this year, and then it costs a lot more down the road. And so you're saying, in other words, that you have to have new revenues to cover this agreement. That's the difference between this MOU and the MOU we voted on before. And so if you want to be honest about this, when you're taking $100 million or $200 million or whatever it is out of this, you're taking that from some other line item in the budget. Call it schools. We've been going on this little road show about how cuts are going to impact the schools. Why don't you deliver the message that you thought this contract was more important than keeping schools open? Because a choice for one thing is a choice not for something else. So the reality is, this isn't last year, it is this year. The reality is, we still have a budget hole, and you're yet again bringing something in that costs the state more money. It does not save the state money, so don't try to pass that off. No, it does not. So we need to do this in the context of the budget. And when we get down that path and figure out how we're going to do this big hole, then bring this back for a vote and see where your votes are. I ask for a no vote.
Further debate or discussion? Further debate or discussion? Senator Correa, seeing and hearing none, you may close.
Thank you very much. First, I want to thank the body for the lively discussion on these very important issues. And let me just bring it back to say that when I was putting together this statement, looking at the numbers, the savings were all over the place, from $500 million to $100 million. I think the numbers I quoted to you, 350 minus 150, were pretty much credible numbers. Yet, please remember that this set of MOUs do save money to California taxpayers. And number two, if you look beyond the four corners of this agreement, what Darrell was talking about, the management aspect of this, will also save a lot more money, because as you know, if there's one area that's growing in cost in our state, it's corrections. And what you need is solid management to bring those costs back in the line. And that's part of this agreement, folks. Again, let me conclude by saying these 6 MOUs have been out there. They've been looked at. There's nothing secret, nothing hidden. It's all for the public to see. It does save money, and it's a very good step forward to better manage our correction system. I ask for an aye vote.
Debate having concluded, Mr. Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist? Aye. Anderson? No. Berryhill? No. Blakesley? Aye. Calderon? Aye. Cannella? No. Corbett? Aye. Correa? Aye. De Leon? Aye. DeSaulnier? Aye. Dutton? No. Emerson? No. Evans? Aye. Fuller? No. Gaines? No. Hancock? Aye. Harmon? No. Hernandez? Aye. Huff? No. Kehoe? Aye. LaMalfa? No. Leno? Aye. Ted Lieu? Aye. Carolou? Aye. Lowenthal? Negrete McLeod? Aye. Padilla? Aye. Pavley? Aye. Price? Aye. Rubio? Aye. Runner? No. Smidian?
Aye.
Aye. Steinberg? Aye. Strickland? No. Vargas? Aye. Walters? No. Wolk? Aye. Wright? Aye. Wyland? No. Yee?
Call the absent members.
Lowenthal? Aye. Yee? Yee, aye.
It's called. Senator Correa, would you like to move a call, sir? Senator Correa moves a call. Members, the item is on call. Senators, we are back at Senate third reading. And Senator Leno, did you have an item you'd like to take up? Would you remind us of the file item, sir? One moment, please, Senator Leno. Senator Steinberg, for what purpose do you rise?
Thank you. For purposes of introduction and point of personal privilege, I'd like to introduce a constituent.
One moment, please, Senator Steinberg. Without objection?
Thank you.
Without objection, Senator. Please proceed.
I would like to introduce a constituent of Senator Harmon's here. It's not usually my place to introduce Senator Harmon's constituents, but in this case, I'd like to introduce everyone to my brother, the Honorable Rabbi Rick Steinberg, who was here for the Holocaust.
Very pleased.
Over in the Assembly, my younger brother.
Thank you, Senator Steinberg. I can assure your brother that we're always pleased to welcome the guests and constituents of Senator Tom Harmon. Thank you again for being with us today. Now, Senator Leno, for what purpose do you rise?
If there is time, I'd like to take up item 15, please.
File item 15. Without objection, Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 687 by Senator Leno, enacting to criminal procedure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I will be succinct to this. This issue has to do with in-custody informant testimony, if that means anything to you. The issue came out of hearings that were held by the Fair Administration of Justice Commission, looking at the fact that there were so many exonerations of innocent people from California prisons. In fact, this is a national phenomenon, and there have been studies that have shown that one of the main reasons for innocent people being incarcerated, and keep in mind, when there's an innocent person incarcerated, the true assailant is still out in the community, potentially causing more trouble, more harm. So the commission looked at this and determined that one of the main factors was that here in California we make use of in custody informant testimony. Now this means more commonly known as a jailhouse snitch. This is an individual who has by definition the very least credibility because they are already incarcerated. They're looking for some benefit, shorter sentence, better conditions in prison, if they give up information that law enforcement's looking for so that they can try and convict somebody else. Since 1915, here in California, if you collaborated on a crime and you informed on your co-conspirator in that crime, though you're also implicating yourself as a co-conspirator in that crime, we already require that there be corroborating evidence. And that's all this bill does too, that because of the very nature of the low credibility of an in-custody informant, that we require some other kind of corroborating evidence before this can be brought into the courtroom as evidence. Just to share with you some figures here, a study conducted in California estimates that 20% of the state's wrongful convictions, capital or otherwise, are the result of false informant testimony. And out of Northwestern University School of Law, false informant testimony was the factor in about half of 111 death row exonerations. Again, when we send someone else to death row for a murder and that person is innocent, the murderer is still out there risking public safety. So we have the support of the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, who already has this in practice and says that it has not in any way hampered their ability to reach convictions and that they stand by their practice. PORAC, which initially had an opposed position, I have the letter in my hand, is now completely neutral on this. We also have the support of the San Francisco District Attorney's Office. I would ask for your aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Senator Lieu.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I am very familiar with this bill. I voted no on it in 2007. I voted no on it in 2008. But as years have gone by, one issue has bothered me more and more, and that is the number of innocent people that we convict. And I can think of few greater evils than putting someone away who is innocent. And so my thinking has evolved on this issue. I've concluded that while this bill might result in less convictions, it will also result in less innocent people being convicted. That is a trade-off I will accept, and today I'm going to vote aye in this bill.
Further debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Senator Leno, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll close very briefly with two sentences from an editorial in support of this bill when Gloria Romero authored it in 2007 from the Orange County Register. They said, quote, "This seems like a basic measure given that jailhouse informants have every reason to lie, given that the authorities give them leniency in exchange for their testimony," unquote. I'd ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist? Aye. Anderson? No. Berryhill? No. Blakesley? No. Calderon? Aye. Cannella? Corbett? Aye. Correa? De Leon? Aye. DeSaulnier? Aye. Dutton? No. Emerson? No. Evans? Aye. Fuller? No. Gaines? No. Hancock? Aye. Harmon? No. Hernandez? Aye. Huff? No. Kehoe? Aye. LaMalfa? No. Leno? Aye. Ted Lieu? Aye. Carol Lieu? Aye. Lowenthal? Aye. Negrete McLeod? Aye. Padilla? Aye. Pavley? Aye. Price? Aye. Rubio? No. Runner? No. Simidian?
Aye.
Aye. Steinberg? Aye. Strickland? No. Vargas? Aye. Walters? No. Wolk? Aye. Wright? Aye. Wyland? No. Yee? Yee, aye.
Ayes 23, noes 15. The bill is passed. Thank you. Members, if I could have your attention, please. Senator Steinberg, as you're aware, we do have one item on call. It's my understanding that it is your intention to ask that the Senate stand in recess until 4:15 this afternoon. During that time, the various committee hearings that are scheduled may commence. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct. Mr. President.
All right, then. Senator, just for purposes of announcement, I will indicate that the Senate Environmental Quality Committee will reconvene in room 112 in 15 minutes following the adjournment of session, or excuse me, the recess of session. Senator Negrete-McLeod.
Yes, at the recess of session, we will. The PERS committee will also meet on the second floor.
PERS committee upon recess. Senator Leno.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Budget and Fiscal Review will convene for about a 10-15 minute hearing at 2:40 in 3191. 3191. That's already you.
Senator Kehoe, please.
No, it will be.
Senator Kehoe. Members, please. One moment, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appropriations will reconvene after our recess immediately upon adjournment. We're about halfway through the file, so if members could come and vote, we will be finished that much sooner. Thank you. 4203.
And Senator Price, for purposes of announcement.
B&P committee will reconvene 3191 at the on recess.
Thank you, Senator Price. With those announcements, members, we are standing in recess until 4:15, at which time the Senate will reconvene in these chambers. We are in recess.